The first thing Evan Mercer noticed was the shoe sticking out of his passenger side window. Not a whole shoe exactly. Just the white rubber edge of a sneaker pressed against the glass from inside his dark green Honda CR-V, where absolutely no sneaker should have been at 10:40 on a Thursday night. Evan stopped halfway across the nearly empty parking lot, a metal toolbox hanging from one hand. Behind him, the community arts center had gone quiet after 3 hours of adjusting brakes, replacing worn cables, and explaining to college students that duct tape was not a permanent bicycle repair strategy. He was tired enough to briefly consider whether he had somehow forgotten inviting someone into his car. He had not. Evan set the toolbox down and approached carefully. A man was asleep in the passenger seat. He looked about Evan's age, maybe a couple of years younger, curled awkwardly toward the door in a faded denim jacket with streaks of blue paint on one sleeve. His dark hair had fallen across his forehead. Both hands were visible. Nothing inside the car appeared disturbed. Evan stared through the window for several seconds. "Okay," he muttered. "That is new." He tapped on the glass. Nothing. He tapped harder. The man jerked awake so violently that his shoulder hit the door. His eyes went wide when he saw Evan standing outside. Then he looked around the car, and the color drained from his face. He opened the door immediately. "Oh God. Hi. This is your car." That was my working theory. The stranger climbed out so quickly, he nearly tripped over his own feet. "I am so sorry. I can explain. That would be useful. I did not steal anything." Also useful. The man glanced into the car as if checking for evidence against himself. The door was unlocked. Evan closed his eyes for half a second. He had been carrying tools inside all evening and must have forgotten to lock it. That explains how. It does not really explain why. Right? The stranger rubbed both hands over his face. Up close, Evan noticed how exhausted he looked. Not dangerous. Not drunk. Just worn down in a way Evan recognized from customers who apologized for broken bicycles as though mechanical failure were a moral weakness. "My name is Noah," the man said. "Noah Bennett. My car died across the lot. I called roadside assistance. They said 2 hours, maybe longer. My phone was almost dead, and it was freezing, and I saw your door was open. So you got into a stranger's car. I was going to sit down for 5 minutes." Evan glanced at the fogged passenger window. Those were ambitious 5 minutes. Noah gave a small, embarrassed laugh, but it disappeared almost immediately. "I know how this looks. I just could not go home tonight." Something in his voice changed on the last sentence. Evan's irritation faded. "Are you safe there?" Noah looked at him. For the first time since waking, he stopped apologizing. "Yes." "Is someone there making you feel unsafe?" "No." Noah shoved his hands into his jacket pockets and stared across the parking lot at his dead Subaru. That would almost be easier to explain. Evan knew the instinct that came next. Find the problem. Identify the parts. Fix what could be fixed. It was what he did for a living. And if he was being truthful, it was what he did with people too. But Noah had not asked to be fixed. So Evan picked up his toolbox instead. "There is an all-night diner about 3 blocks from here." Noah blinked. "Okay. It has heat, coffee, and booths that are probably more comfortable than my passenger seat. You can wait for your tow there. You do not have to do that." "I know." That seemed to confuse Noah more than anything else. He looked toward the diner sign, glowing faintly beyond the wet trees, then back at Evan. "Can I at least buy the coffee?" Evan opened the driver's door. "You broke into my car. I think I get to buy the coffee." Noah stared at him, then laughed for real this time. A minute later, he was back in the passenger seat, awake now, buckled in and apologizing for getting rainwater on the floor mat. Evan started the engine without telling him that the floor mat had survived much worse. He still did not know why Noah could not go home. But as they pulled out of the parking lot, Evan found himself wondering why a man who seemed determined not to inconvenience anyone had needed an unlocked stranger's car just to give himself somewhere to stop. The diner was almost empty, which Evan considered a point in its favor. A tired neon sign buzzed in the front window, and somewhere behind the counter, a coffee machine made noises suggesting it had survived several presidential administrations. Noah slid into a booth and immediately reached for his phone. 2%, he announced. "I am living recklessly." Evan pulled a portable battery from his jacket pocket and placed it on the table. Noah stared at it. "Of course you have one of those. I fix bicycles out of a van. Half my job is being prepared for people who are not. I feel judged." You climbed into an unlocked Honda to take a nap. Fair. Noah plugged in his phone, then carefully set the battery between them as if Evan might accuse him of stealing that too. A waitress brought coffee and menus. Noah ordered pancakes. Evan ordered eggs and toast, mostly because he had forgotten dinner existed. For a few minutes, they talked about harmless things. Noah explained the blue paint on his jacket came from scenery he had been working on at the theater inside the Arts Center. He was an assistant production designer, which, according to him, meant he spent half his life making fake walls look real and the other half convincing actors not to lean on them. Evan told him about Mercer motorcycles. So you drive around fixing people's bikes? Noah asked. Mostly, like a bicycle ambulance. Please never call it that. Too late. It is excellent branding. Evan was beginning to understand that Noah used humor the way some people used umbrellas. It did not stop the weather. It just gave him something to hold while standing in it. When the pancakes arrived, Noah cut one into unnecessarily precise squares. My mom sold our house, he said. Evan waited. Well, technically, she is selling it. Closing is next week. She remarried last year. Good guy. Tom. He makes her happy. Noah pushed a square of pancake through maple syrup without eating it. I am happy for her too. I need that entered into the official record. Noted. She is moving into his place, so we spent tonight packing the last boxes. His smile thinned. The house looked strange empty. Smaller, somehow. Evan took a sip of coffee. He could feel solutions lining up automatically in his head. Storage unit. Hotel. Friend's couch. Go back tomorrow in daylight. He kept them there. Noah continued. There is this mark on the kitchen door frame from when I was 13. My dad measured my height and wrote the date next to it. The buyers mentioned they are probably painting everything. He finally ate the pancake square, which is normal. They bought a house, not a Noah Bennett Memorial Museum. Evan almost smiled. That would have terrible resale value. Noah pointed his fork at him. Exactly. Then his expression softened. My dad died 3 years ago. Mom spent a long time being lonely after that. Now she is not. I do not want her looking at me and thinking she has to feel guilty for moving forward. So you left. I said I was going for a drive. Noah looked toward the dark window. I thought I would circle the neighborhood, get coffee, go back. Then the car died, and suddenly going back felt impossible. Because of the car? Noah shook his head. Because I did not know where to put the part of me that was sad without making it somebody else's responsibility. Evan looked down at his plate. That sentence landed closer to home than he wanted it to. You could just be sad, he said. Noah looked up. Evan shrugged. You do not have to make anybody responsible for it. For once, Noah had no joke ready. His phone buzzed. Roadside assistance. The truck was 10 minutes away. Noah immediately reached for the check when the waitress dropped it. Evan got there first. Absolutely not, Noah said. You gave me a ride, a charger, and apparently emotional clarity with breakfast food. I am paying. You can buy breakfast next time you accidentally occupy my vehicle. There is not going to be a next time. Then you are out of luck. Noah frowned. I hate owing people. Evan slid his card onto the tray. Then do not owe me. It was pancakes. 2 nights later, Evan returned to the Arts Center for a scheduled repair appointment. At the front desk, a volunteer handed him a plain white envelope with his name written across it. Inside was no money, no gift card, and no elaborate thank you note. There was one complimentary ticket to the theater's Friday performance and a line written beneath it in blue ink, for the pancakes. Not repayment. Evan read it twice, slipped the ticket into his jacket pocket, and told himself he had not yet decided whether he was going. By Friday afternoon, Evan had developed 3 reasonable excuses for not using the ticket, which was how he knew he was probably going. At 7:20, he found himself sitting near the back of the small theater with grease still faintly trapped beneath one thumbnail, despite washing his hands twice. The production was a quiet comedy set in a seaside motel, and Evan spent the first 10 minutes noticing things he suspected normal audience members did not notice. A door that appeared solid but was probably hollow, a window showing an ocean that did not exist, and a motel sign whose flickering neon effect somehow looked more convincing than the real broken sign outside his favorite hardware store. By intermission, he had stopped trying to figure out how everything worked. He was simply enjoying himself. After the final bow, Noah appeared beside his row wearing black work clothes and a headset around his neck. You came, The surprise in his voice was genuine enough that Evan felt oddly pleased by it. You gave me a ticket. People ignore free things constantly. There are entire drawers full of complimentary hotel soap proving that. Noah led him backstage, where the polished illusion immediately became plywood, cables, paint cans, and handwritten warnings taped to nearly everything. Evan liked it better back there. Noah showed him miniature set models on a work table and explained how a wall Evan had assumed was brick was actually carved foam. So your job is lying professionally, Evan said. Creating controlled illusions. Lying with a budget. Noah considered that. I am putting that on my resume. Near the loading door sat an old black bicycle with a chain hanging loose. Noah pointed at it. Since the bicycle ambulance is here. No. Could you look at that? We use it for coffee runs and emergency hardware store missions. Evan crouched beside the bike. Noah crouched too, despite having no obvious reason to. Your derailleur is bent. Noah examined the rear. Well, seriously. Which part is the derailleur? Evan pointed. That. The tiny bike elbow. Evan looked at him. I need you to never say that again. 10 minutes later, Noah was holding a flashlight while Evan adjusted the mechanism. What about those gears? Noah asked. Cassette. That cannot be right. It is. That is clearly gear lasagna. Evan lowered his wrench. You design scenery for a living. Exactly. I recognize layered construction. The bicycle was fixed before Noah exhausted his supply of incorrect terminology. Afterward, they walked to a food cart 2 blocks away. Noah bought Evan a grilled chicken sandwich before Evan could object. This is not repayment, he said, handing it over. This is lunch several hours late. That became something of a pattern over the next 2 weeks. Noah showed up at a Saturday repair event carrying 2 coffees and stayed long enough to organize replacement tubes by size. Evan stopped by the theater after a service call and helped the crew figure out why a rolling section of scenery kept pulling sideways. Noah designed a new decal for Mercer Mobile Cycles, replacing Evan's painfully plain block lettering with something cleaner and warmer. I did not ask for a new logo, Evan said when Noah pressed the sample against the side of his van. Correct. You redesigned my business without permission. Also correct. Evan left the decal there. Noah noticed, but, mercifully, said nothing. Their conversations began stretching beyond whatever practical excuse had brought them together. Noah learned Evan took his coffee with milk, but no sugar. Evan learned Noah forgot to eat whenever he was focused on a design. Noah started riding in the passenger seat during occasional supply runs, and Evan stopped wondering whether silence needed filling. It was comfortable now, which felt more significant than Evan wanted to examine. One Thursday evening, as they stood outside the theater debating whether a torque wrench qualified as a very judgmental ratchet, Noah's phone lit up. He read the message, and the humor left his face. Evan did not ask immediately. Noah slipped the phone into his pocket, stared at the sidewalk for a moment, then said, with unusual care, "Are you busy Saturday?" This time, Evan understood that Noah was not asking because something needed fixing. Saturday morning smelled like wet leaves and cardboard. Evan parked outside a narrow 2-story house in southeast Portland and found Noah sitting on the front steps with 2 paper cups beside him. I remembered the milk, Noah said, offering one. No sugar. Evan took it. You are becoming dangerously competent. Do not worry. I still think a derailleur sounds like something a train does. The joke landed, but softly. Behind Noah, the front door stood open. Through it, Evan could see pale rectangles on the walls where pictures had been removed. Noah led him through rooms that seemed caught between occupied and abandoned. A single mug remained beside the kitchen sink. Blue painter's tape labeled boxes near the stairs. In the hallway, faint pencil marks climbed one side of a doorframe, each accompanied by a date. Noah touched the highest one with 2 fingers as he passed. Garage is this way. He did not stop. Evan did not make him. The garage held the stubborn remains of a family life that had resisted packing. Camping chairs, extension cords, old paint, gardening tools, Christmas decorations, and several containers labeled miscellaneous in increasingly frustrated handwriting. Noah handed Evan a marker. 3 categories. Keep, donate, trash. You invited a mechanic to organize a garage. I invited a man who owns labeled drawers for different sizes of washers. Evan looked at him. How do you know about the drawers? I have eyes. For the first hour, the work was easy. Noah made ruthless decisions about broken lawn equipment and became strangely protective of a plastic flamingo with one leg. Evan found 4 identical tape measures in separate boxes. Your family had a tape measure problem. My father believed measuring devices migrated if left unsupervised. Around noon, Noah pulled a small metal box from beneath the workbench. He opened it and went still. Inside was an unsorted collection of screws, washers, bolts, picture hooks, and pieces of hardware whose original purposes had probably been forgotten years ago. Noah picked up a brass screw and rolled it between his fingers. This was my dad's. Evan sat back on his heels. Noah gave a quiet laugh. Obviously not the screw specifically. Although knowing him, he probably had a story for that too. He looked into the box. He kept everything because he thought someday something would need fixing. The sentence settled between them. Evan looked around at the half-empty garage, then at his own hands. He understood the logic of keeping useful things. Spare cables, old bolts, extra tools, things waiting patiently for the moment they could justify the space they occupied. Mom asked if I wanted his tools, Noah said. I said no. Did you mean it? Noah considered the question. I meant that I do not need a circular saw. Reasonable. I did not mean the rest of it. He sat on the concrete floor beside the box. Evan sat too. For a while, neither of them said anything. Rain ticked against the garage door. Somewhere inside the house, a refrigerator hummed in an otherwise empty kitchen. Noah finally put the brass screw back. I keep thinking I should be handling this better. Evan resisted the familiar urge to tell him how. Instead, he nudged the metal box gently with the toe of his shoe. Keep pile. Noah looked at him, then nodded. Keep pile. They finished after sunset. Noah kept the hardware box, the one-legged flamingo, and exactly one of the 4 tape measures. When Evan carried the last donation box to his car, Noah followed him outside. Thank you, he said. For carrying boxes? Sure. Let us call it that. Evan opened the rear hatch. You bought the coffee. We are even. Noah smiled. I thought we were not keeping score. Evan paused, caught by his own rule coming back at him. Right. Noah helped him slide the box inside. Before closing the hatch, Evan noticed Noah had placed his father's metal hardware box carefully beside his backpack rather than burying it with everything else. It was a small choice, but Evan understood it. Some things did not need to be useful to deserve space. On Monday afternoon, Noah texted him a photograph from the theater. One of the large rolling set pieces sat crooked on the stage, accompanied by 6 words. Your tiny bike elbow expertise is needed. Evan laughed in the middle of a service call, and an hour later, when his workday ended, he found himself driving toward the theater without having to decide whether he wanted to go. The rolling set piece turned out to be an 8-foot section of fake apartment wall mounted on 6 caster wheels, which meant Evan understood the problem almost immediately and Noah understood why it mattered. It has to cross 12 feet during a blackout and land exactly here, Noah said, pointing to a strip of fluorescent tape on the stage. Right now it lands somewhere near Idaho. Evan crouched beside the frame. One wheel is fighting the other 5. So it has emotional issues. It is misaligned. That is what I said. They worked with 2 crew members for nearly an hour, Noah explaining how the wall needed to move while Evan adjusted the mounting hardware beneath it. The collaboration felt strangely effortless. Evan could make the mechanism behave, but Noah knew how every inch affected the larger design. When Evan suggested replacing one bracket, Noah stopped him. That gives us another half-inch underneath. Is that bad? Only if you want the audience to see a mysterious floating wall. Evan looked up. Good catch. Noah smiled. I am useful occasionally. Evan returned to the bracket. I noticed. They found another solution. 20 minutes before preview, the wall rolled across the stage in complete darkness and stopped directly on its mark. The crew applauded. Noah threw both arms into the air as if they had landed something on Mars. Evan, who had spent years treating successful repairs as the minimum acceptable outcome, found himself laughing with him. Later, rain hammered the Art Center roof hard enough to make conversation difficult near the loading entrance. Noah appeared beside Evan with 2 paper takeout bags. I have noodles, dumplings, and no desire to eat either while sitting on a wet loading dock. They ran through the rain to Evan's Honda. Noah opened the passenger door, then stopped. The seat was empty. Not mostly empty. Empty. The receipts, shop towels, spare gloves, tire gauge, and 3 catalogs that usually migrated there between jobs were gone. Noah looked at Evan over the roof. You clean this. Evan unlocked his side. I clean my car. You clean the driver's side. This seat normally looks like a hardware store lost in argument. Evan climbed in. Noah followed, still looking suspiciously at the empty space around him. I needed somewhere to put you, Evan said. Silence. Evan froze with one hand on the takeout bag. Noah turned slowly toward him. For once, neither of them rescued the moment with a joke. Evan could hear rain drumming against the windshield and the quiet rush of the heater. He had meant the sentence literally. At least, he thought he had. But looking at Noah sitting there, jacket damp at the shoulders, hair curling slightly from the rain, Evan realized he had cleared the seat that morning before Noah had even texted. He had done it without thinking. Noah had become someone he expected to see. That was different from being helpful. Different from giving a stranded stranger a ride or repairing a theater bicycle. Evan was making room before he was asked. Noah finally looked down at the food. Dumpling, please. The tension softened, but it did not disappear. They ate with the containers balanced between them, talking about the preview, a lighting cue Noah hated, and whether the fake apartment wall deserved its own employee badge. When Noah reached for the last dumpling, Evan moved the container closer without looking. Noah took it without asking. Small things, Evan thought. Somehow it was always the small things. After they finished, Noah wiped condensation from the passenger window with his sleeve. I should probably tell you something before it becomes weird that I have not. Evan glanced over. Noah's phone rang before he could continue. He looked at the screen, and his expression shifted into startled concentration. Sorry, I need to take this. He stepped out beneath the Arts Center awning. Through the rain-streaked windshield, Evan watched him listen, straighten, then glance instinctively back toward the car. When Noah returned several minutes later, he was smiling, but there was uncertainty underneath it. Everything okay? Evan asked. Noah buckled his seatbelt. Yeah, work thing. He looked forward. Potentially a good one. Evan waited, but Noah did not add anything, and Evan did not push. He started the engine and pulled away from the curb. Beside him, Noah rested one hand on his phone, thoughtful and unusually quiet. Neither man said anything more about the empty passenger seat, but both of them understood now that it had stopped being empty by accident. 3 days later, Evan stood inside an empty 1,200 square foot storefront with a tape measure in one hand and a lease application in the other. The place smelled like dust and fresh paint. It had a scarred concrete floor, one narrow office in back, and enough room along the front wall for 3 repair stands. It was imperfect, expensive, and almost exactly what he had wanted for 2 years. You could put the workbenches here, Noah said, walking backward across the floor. Customer check-in near the entrance. Storage on that wall. Evan watched him mentally transform the empty room. You have been here 4 minutes. Professional hazard. Noah pulled a small notebook from his jacket. How many bikes do you need to fit comfortably? 6 inside. Maybe 8 if everybody is friendly. Noah started sketching. Evan looked down at the lease terms again. 3 years. The number seemed heavier every time he read it. His mobile business was doing well, but a workshop meant rent, utilities, insurance, equipment, and the possibility that being reliable would finally stop being enough. You are doing the thing, Noah said. What thing? The thing where your forehead becomes an accountant. Evan folded the paper. 3 years is a long time. Noah stopped sketching. Do you want the space? That is not the same question as whether I can make it work. I know. Noah looked around the storefront instead of offering reassurance. Evan appreciated that. For what it is worth, I can already picture it full. You picture fake buildings for a living. Exactly. I am highly qualified. Evan smiled despite himself. Noah spent the next half hour measuring walls while Evan inspected outlets and calculated how many service appointments it would take each month to cover rent. At one point, Noah stood in the center of the room with both arms extended, estimating clearance for a waiting area, and Evan caught himself imagining him there months from now, still making unsolicited design decisions. The thought came too easily. Noah's phone rang. He checked the screen. I should get this. He moved toward the front window. Evan returned to the lease, trying not to listen until he heard Noah say, Yes, I can be in Chicago Tuesday. Evan's eyes lifted. Noah turned slightly away. No, that works. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. When he ended the call, the room seemed larger than it had a minute earlier. Chicago? Evan asked. Noah slipped the phone into his pocket. That was the work thing I mentioned. The potentially good one. Yeah. Noah rubbed the back of his neck. A theater there is hiring a production designer. Not assistant. Production designer. They saw some of my work through our artistic director and asked me to interview. Evan knew enough about Noah by now to understand what those missing two words meant. Not assistant. That is great, he said. Noah searched his face. It could be. You should go. The answer came automatically, clean and practical. Of course Noah should go. Evan had watched him turn foam into brick, solve impossible stage problems, and care about half-inch clearances nobody in the audience would ever notice. This was what he wanted. Evan had no right to make that complicated. Noah nodded once. Right? Yeah, I should. He bent over his notebook again, but the easy energy from 10 minutes earlier was gone. So, waiting area. Maybe over there. Evan heard the change and had no idea what to do with it without saying something he was not ready to say. You do not have to finish this today. I know. Noah closed the notebook. I want to. They worked another 20 minutes, both of them suddenly excellent at discussing square footage. When they left, Noah handed Evan the page of measurements and wished him luck with the lease. Evan wished him luck with Chicago. It was polite, supportive, exactly what two people who wanted good things for each other were supposed to say. But after Noah drove away, Evan remained beside his Honda with the folded measurements in his hand. For weeks, he had been making room for Noah without thinking about it. Now, for the first time, he wondered whether making room was the easy part. The harder part might be admitting he cared whether Noah stayed. Noah left for Chicago early Tuesday morning. Evan knew because Noah had mentioned the flight time while they were measuring the workshop, not because either of them had discussed it again. On Monday evening, Noah stopped by Evan's van outside a final service appointment and held out a small chrome socket wrench. Apparently, I have been carrying this around since garage day. Evan took it from him. I wondered where that went. You did. I usually notice one missing tool eventually. Noah smiled, but something in his expression tightened. Good to know. Evan turned the wrench over in his palm. There were several things he could have said. Have a good flight felt too small. I will miss you felt too large. Ask me what happens if you get the job felt impossible. So he settled for, good luck tomorrow. Thanks. Noah pushed his hands into his coat pockets. Good luck with the workshop. They stood there another second, both apparently waiting for the other man to discover better vocabulary. Neither did. Noah left. The next morning, Evan signed the 3-year lease. He should have felt triumphant. Instead, standing alone in the empty storefront with the keys in his hand, he found himself reaching for his phone before stopping. He wanted to send Noah a photograph. He wanted Noah to be the first person who saw the place after it became real. Evan put the phone away. Noah had an interview. He did not need Evan adding another thing to think about. In Chicago, Noah spent 6 hours touring a theater twice the size of the one in Portland. He met the production team, studied their workshop, and talked through a proposed spring show with people who treated his ideas as decisions rather than suggestions waiting for approval. By late afternoon, he wanted the job badly enough to scare himself. The offer came the next morning over coffee in his hotel lobby. The salary was better than he expected. The work was exactly the step forward he had spent years trying to earn. The difficult part was the start date, 3 weeks. Noah thanked them and asked for time to review the contract. Then he walked 3 blocks through cold wind before realizing his first instinct had been to call Evan. He did not. What was he supposed to say? I got everything I wanted, and now I need to know whether that bothers you? He could already hear Evan's answer. You should go. Back in Portland, Evan discovered that an empty passenger seat could become irritating. He cleared it automatically before a Thursday service run, moving 2 catalogs and a box of brake pads into the back. Then he stood beside the open door, staring at the space he had made for someone who was 800 miles away. Ridiculous, he told himself. He put 1 catalog back, then removed it again because that felt worse. Noah returned Friday night. Their messages during the trip had been friendly and careful. Evan asked how the interview went. Noah said it went well. Noah asked about the lease. Evan said he was still working through details. Neither statement was technically a lie. Neither was the truth they actually wanted from each other. On Saturday, Evan spent most of the day assembling storage racks in the workshop. Noah sat in his apartment with the Chicago contract open on his laptop and a calendar beside it. 18 weeks on-site across the year. Design development could potentially be done remotely, according to one clause. though the exact arrangement would need approval. It was not as simple as moving away forever. Somehow that made calling Evan harder, not easier. Noah closed the laptop and rubbed his eyes. He had spent years telling himself that asking for nothing made him easy to have around. Now he could see the cost of it with uncomfortable clarity. Evan was doing the same thing from the opposite direction, always offering help and never admitting when he wanted anything back. They had become very good at caring for each other without requiring anything of each other. It had felt generous at first. Now it felt lonely. Across town, Evan tightened the final bolt on a workbench and looked around the workshop he had finally chosen for himself. For once, there was no mechanical problem left to solve. He sat on the unfinished bench, phone in his hand, Noah's name on the screen, and understood that waiting for someone to need him was not the same thing as asking them to stay in his life. He still did not know how to say it. But somewhere between an empty workshop and an empty passenger seat, Evan finally understood that silence was already making a choice for him. Noah arrived at the workshop Sunday morning, carrying 2 coffees and no excuse for being there. Evan was kneeling beside a half-assembled workbench when the front door opened. He looked up, wrench in hand, and for a second neither man spoke. Noah set 1 coffee on the counter. "I got the job." Evan stood. "Chicago. Chicago." The familiar response rose automatically. "Congratulations. You should take it." Noah seemed to see it coming. "Please do not tell me what I should do yet." Evan closed his mouth. Noah took a breath. "They want me to start in 3 weeks. The position is exactly what I have been working toward. Better projects, more responsibility, my name on the designs instead of underneath somebody else's." "That sounds good." "It is good." Noah rubbed his thumb against the coffee cup. "And I want it." Evan nodded, though something inside him tightened. "Okay, but I also want this." Noah gestured between them, awkwardly but deliberately. "Whatever this has been becoming." Evan went very still. Noah gave a nervous half-laugh. "That sounded more coherent in my apartment. Keep going. I spent 4 days in Chicago trying not to call you because I thought wanting you to care what happened would make me demanding. Then I came home and realized I was doing exactly what I always do. I disappear before anybody gets the chance to decide whether I am too much trouble." He looked directly at Evan. "I do not want to do that this time." Evan set the wrench on the bench. Noah continued before courage could leave him. "I want the job, and I want whatever this is with you. I am tired of pretending wanting 2 things makes me selfish." The workshop was quiet except for rain tapping the front windows. Evan looked at the unfinished shelves, the unopened boxes, the coffee Noah had remembered exactly the way he liked it. His instinct was still to solve the logistics first. Flights, schedules, distance, costs. Instead, he forced himself to answer the part Noah had actually offered him. "I want you in my life." Noah's shoulders lowered slightly. Evan exhaled. "I did not say that before, because I thought if I asked you to consider me, I would be turning this into an obligation, like you would have to choose between the job and—" He gestured between them now. "Whatever this is becoming. We are very good at that phrase." "Apparently." Noah smiled. "For 2 people who talk this much, we are surprisingly bad at the important part." Evan almost laughed. "I signed the lease." Noah blinked. "You did? Tuesday." "Evan, I know. That is huge. I wanted to tell you. Why did you not?" Evan gave him a look. Noah sighed. "Right. Same disease." This time they both laughed, and the tension loosened enough for Noah to pull his laptop from his bag. He showed Evan the contract. The position required 18 weeks on-site throughout the year, with design development potentially remote if the theater approved the arrangement. It was not easy. It was also not a choice between 2 doors that could never be opened at once. "I still have to negotiate it," Noah said. "They could say no, and if they do, then I decide what I want based on the actual answer, not based on what I am afraid you might want." Evan nodded. "Good." Noah looked at him. "You are allowed to want things too." That landed harder than Evan expected. He stepped closer. "Then I want to try this. Even if it is inconvenient." "That is almost romantic. Do not ruin it." Noah smiled, and Evan kissed him. It was brief and careful, less like arriving somewhere than agreeing to start. When they separated, Noah glanced at the unfinished workbench. "Was that your plan for getting free labor?" "You caught me." "Fine. But I am not touching anything involving the judgmental ratchet." Evan handed him the instruction sheet instead. For the next hour, they built the workbench together, stopping twice because Noah installed something backward and once because Evan finally admitted he needed help holding a shelf level. Nothing about Chicago was settled yet. Nothing about the workshop was guaranteed. But when Noah left that afternoon to call the theater and negotiate the life he actually wanted, neither of them pretended anymore that the other man had no place in the decision. 6 weeks later, Evan stood inside Mercer Motorcycles with 3 bicycles waiting for repairs, for customers filling out check-in forms, and absolutely no idea where he had put his coffee. The workshop was officially open, though finished would have been generous. One wall still needed shelving. The office contained more cardboard boxes than furniture, and every unexpected expense made Evan briefly reconsider all of his life choices. But the repair stands were occupied. The new sign was above the door. People had shown up. So had Noah. He had negotiated the Chicago position into 18 on-site weeks spread across the year, with design development done remotely from Portland when the production schedule allowed it. His first Chicago stretch started Monday. Today, however, he was standing near the entrance holding a clipboard and watching Evan attempt to greet a customer, answer his phone, locate a missing invoice, and diagnose a clicking bottom bracket at the same time. "You are doing the thing," Noah said. Evan covered the phone. "What thing?" "The thing where you become personally responsible for every object and human being within 50 feet. "I am working. Your coffee is on top of the tire rack." Evan looked. It was. "Thank you." Noah returned to the small scenery model he had brought to work on while Evan handled the opening day rush. 5 minutes later, another customer entered. Evan automatically moved toward the front desk, then stopped. He looked at Noah. The old reflex was immediate. Handle it himself. Be useful. Be the person nobody needed to worry about. Instead, he picked up the clipboard and held it out. "Can you handle check-in for 20 minutes? Noah looked at the clipboard, then at him. There was no teasing in his expression now. He simply took it. "Yeah, I can do that. Thanks. Go fix the tiny bike elbow." A customer nearby looked alarmed. Evan sighed. "Derailleur." Noah smiled. "Whatever helps you sleep." 20 minutes became 35. Noah checked in customers while sketching between arrivals. Evan worked through repairs without checking the front desk every 30 seconds. Nothing collapsed. Nobody resented him. At one point, Noah asked where the waiver forms were, and Evan answered without abandoning the bicycle in front of him. It was embarrassingly ordinary. It also felt like progress. By 6, the last customer had left. Evan locked the front door and leaned against it. "I survived." Noah was putting his laptop into his backpack. "Your gear lasagna survived too. You have permanently damaged my professional vocabulary. You are welcome." They cleaned together, then stepped outside into the cold December evening. Evan needed shelves for the office, and the hardware store was still open. At the Honda, Noah opened the passenger door and stopped. 3 catalogs, a roll of shop towels, and a box of invoices covered the seat. He looked across the roof at Evan. Evan looked at the mess. "Give me a second. Apparently I forgot you exist." Noah nodded solemnly. "Story of my life." Evan gathered everything into his arms and dumped it onto the back seat. Noah climbed in. This time there was no dead Subaru across a parking lot. No dying phone. No tow truck coming. Noah had his own apartment, his own car, a job he had earned, and a flight to Chicago in less than 48 hours. He was not there because he had nowhere else to go. Evan got behind the wheel and noticed a small decal resting on the dashboard. It matched the Mercer Motorcycles logo Noah had redesigned weeks earlier, except beneath the name, he had added 2 words in smaller lettering: by appointment. Evan picked it up. "What is this?" "Brand refinement. You redesigned my business again. I prefer ongoing creative partnership." Evan laughed. "You have never respected an appointment in your life. That is why I understand their importance." Evan placed the decal carefully in the center console instead of throwing it away. Monday would bring an airport goodbye. Chicago would bring long workdays for Noah. The workshop would bring invoices, rent, and problems Evan could not predict. They had not solved distance or ambition or the inconvenient fact that 2 separate lives did not automatically fit together. They had simply stopped pretending that caring meant asking nothing of each other. Noah buckled his seatbelt. Hardware store. Evan started the engine. Hardware store. The Honda pulled away from the curb, and Noah settled into the passenger seat. Not borrowed now, not empty, and not owed to him. He simply chose it, and Evan had chosen to make room.